Hello, hi there. Thank you for joining us for another edition of 21 Minutes with KKB. My name is Kobna Chenchehene. Today, I'm bringing to you a very interesting guest, someone who is not Ghanaian, but seems to do a lot more things than many Ghanaians even care to associate themselves with. He's more Ghanaian than some Ghanaians, I've been told. And indeed, I've seen him do a few things myself. Well, he's here in Ghana representing the United Kingdom. Stay tuned. I'll be back shortly with my guest for the show. Stay with us. Iain Walker is the UK High Commissioner to Ghana. Today, he happens to be my guest on 21 Minutes with KKB. Mr. Walker, good to have you on the show.
Thank you. Thanks
You're
for
looking good.
Me. You're looking well yourself.
I like to wear these African prints. I see you have a lot more than even I do. I saw you wearing a few recently.
Yeah, I do like wearing them. I think they're quite stylish, and I think in the weather here it's better than wearing a shirt and tie and suits, but I try and pick the right moment.
They say you're more Ghanaian than a lot of Ghanaians. Well, why is that the case?
Well, I don't know. I certainly enjoy being in Ghana. It's been we've now been here about 9 months, and everyone's made us feel very, very welcome. So I think there's a lot to do, and I'm very proud to be the British High Commissioner, but I'm really keen to work with Ghanaians. I've had Ghanaian friends since I was a child in the UK.
Okay.
I don't know Ghana anything like as well as Ghanaians do, but I'm here to learn and here to work with Ghanaians to help shape the future that we want to see.
So this is actually the first time in Ghana?
Yeah, first time in Ghana. I'd previously worked in Ethiopia and in Malawi, but my first time in West Africa, and delighted.
Is that perhaps why you seem to have a thing with all these celebrities in Ghana, the music, the fashion and the like? Is that the case?
So I think the reason I see everybody across Ghanaian society. One of my old school friends is back here in Ghana now.
Okay.
I see him. We have people that we work with in business, in politics, obviously. I think some of the people we meet here are really fascinating and interesting, and it's not just about hanging out with celebrities. I think it's two things. One is many of them are doing lots of great things, and a lot of them have a very strong social conscience, so they're interesting people. But secondly, we want to work with them, and not simply to be kind of in the public eye, but to try and affect some change.
I saw you try out Kofi Brookman the other time. How was it?
Kofi Brookman, it was good. I was all right. I quite enjoyed it. It was a pleasant surprise.
Who got it? Abigail?
Abigail.
Oh, as usual. Anyway,
right.
Okay. So again, as we start this, the whole nation is coming to terms with what we saw last Wednesday. That happens to do with this premiere of a documentary that exposes a lot of rot in Ghana. The Anas expose. You were there. I saw you on TV, right?
Yes, I went to see it. Yeah.
What are your initial thoughts on it?
I thought it was a very challenging programme to watch. I thought it highlighted for me the importance of a free press. I think in many countries, if such a documentary was to be made, it would never be allowed to be aired. So I think, first of all, credit to Ghana, to the way Ghana works, to its openness, that kind of documentary can be made and can be shared. So I think that is a real positive. I think it did beg a lot of questions, and I hope and expect, based on what we've heard from the President and others, that this now needs to be followed up with thorough investigations. I don't think you can have trial by media. I think it should be investigated thoroughly, but there was certainly enough prima facie evidence, or enough evidence on the face of it that merits deep and thorough thinking, and I hope that's what happens next.
Okay, some of the things I've heard is that, well, particularly for foreign nationals in the country, the focus is to just highlight on the various negative things about Ghana. Yeah, there's corruption in Ghana football, but it's not only Ghana. Is that the case?
So look, I certainly don't think everything's wrong with Ghana. As I said at the start, it's a privilege, it's an honour to be here. There's lots and lots of fantastic things happening in Ghana, and I've met countless brilliant, interesting people. But we needn't be binary, either it's all good or it's all bad. I think in every society there are things that we want to be doing better. And I think corruption is a challenge that I know Ghana's been wrestling with for some time. The President set up the office of the Special Prosecutor to try and deal with some of this. But I think this is a further example where it needs to be taken seriously and it needs to be gripped. And I think if it isn't gripped, that's when I think Ghana will have problems, not because I say it has problems or because the UK will think it has problems, but because Ghana itself and its people know that when you have corruption, the people that lose out are the people of Ghana themselves. So I think there's enough there, I think, that merits serious investigation.
But do you think we are doing enough as far as the fight against corruption here in Ghana is concerned? The Office of the Special Prosecutor, we are told, has been created, yes, but last I checked, the person occupying that very office was yet to get an office.
So, look, I think, I guess the initial thought for me is that you can never do enough against corruption. The one thing I always think about with corruption is it's like a seed, that if you plant it and bury it, the roots will spread and it will become wider. So things like Anas's expose reinforces for me the importance of transparency, the importance of visibility of action. So that to me is it's not an event. We don't become non-corrupt in the same way the UK doesn't. It's a constant process, and we've got to keep on fighting and pressing to make sure that transparency exists across all the kind of areas that I think were highlighted and more. Because, as I said, it's a pretty simple thing. When there's corruption, we too often, in my mind, focus on those that benefit and say that's not fair, they're benefiting. Actually, that's the tip of the iceberg. Underneath that are people who are losing out, and it's people of Ghana who lose out when that happens. So, as I say, this isn't for me about a British High Commissioner saying something. It's about saying the people of Ghana. I watched it in the theatre. The place was electric. People were, I think, enraged by it. So, what follows next is absolutely essential.
Okay. One of the things people have said, a lot of people have said, is that it's because we have just greedy men in the system. Oftentimes they say women have the tendency to be particular about certain things. They may not, perhaps if we had a lot more women in politics in Ghana, this corruption situation would not be as vast as we see it currently. Is that something you share?
I think there's 2 points you raise there. The first question of why corruption, again, I'm a relatively simple chap. I think corruption exists when there's no consequence. If people are at a base level rational, I don't believe anyone is more corrupt than anyone else. I don't believe people are actually evil or always necessarily trying to do the wrong thing. I think that people act on the whole rationally. So if you can kind of take some kind of chop on the side and people don't notice and there's no consequence, then rationally you carry on. But I think when those things are exposed and there is consequence, people understand that they make a choice, and they make a choice to act against the law, act against norms, and they should face the consequences for that. And I think, if you look in the UK, I think we've introduced things like the Bribery Act, you see in the US the Foreign Corruption Act. These are specific acts of Parliament where if people are seen to be looking to benefit themselves at the expense of others, then that has a consequence, and people now make choices, wide-eyed, open-eyed, about making sure when they invest in countries, when they invest in companies, they do so aware that they want to do it in a transparent way, in a way that would be defensible if they were sitting in front of you today. With
the recently held Commonwealth Heads of Government meeting, I do know that some of these issues did come up, particularly in reference to women in politics. Let's take a look at Ghana and our efforts at getting a lot more women participate in the entire governance process. Do you think we've done enough so far? Are we on the right track at all?
So Ghana, it seems to me, is a very tolerant society, very open society. It has a lot of the laws kind of, I think, encapsulate the desire for inclusivity. I think through the president, he's the chair of the African Union's gender and equality ambitions. I think he personally embodies some of that aspiration. I think, like many countries, the UK included, I can give examples about the UK, but there are a number of things that need to be done. I think the reason he takes this seriously and the reason Ghana should take it seriously is because there is a lot to do. So with just over half of the Ghanaian population being female, you look at then representation of women in Parliament, where it's less than 30%. You look at representation of women on institutions, it's much lower than that. So actually, there are things to do if we really believe in equality of women, and I think that's true across the board. And I give, by way of, equivalence, in the UK, we've looked at things around the gender pay gap, and we've seen that whilst we think people believe they're acting fairly, actually there's a gap between what women are paid and men are paid systemically. So we believe that by exposing that, by making that transparent, people can then address some of those biases in the system. So, which is why I say this isn't me kind of dictating to Ghana. I think this is a challenge across the world. I think it is a challenge in Ghana, and why I'm certainly so pleased that the president is putting real investment into this. And I think it needs to be a deeper and wider conversation that really says empowering of women isn't just a job for women, it's a job for men and women, because it strengthens democracy. Why would you keep half of your population
More than
somehow
half,
held back? Yeah, I mean, so I think there's a lot to do here.
Let's look at our president, Nana Akufo-Addo, and his vision. Of course, coming into office, one of the things he had been trumpeting, and one of the things he has been trumpeting even now, is a Ghana Beyond Aid. And as the UK, let's say you are parents. let me put it in a context.
No, I think we're equals.
Yes, we're very close. How do you see that vision panning out? It's been 18 months. How do you see Nana Akufo-Addo's vision of a Ghana Beyond Aid panning out? Does it look like something that's going to happen anytime soon?
Well, first of all, I wouldn't see us as parents. I think I'd adapt a Ghanaian expression, say we want to be brothers. You know, we want this to be, and see this as a partnership of equals. It's not about one asserting authority over the other and any kind of parent. I don't see it that way, and I don't think that's the way people in the UK see this at all. Okay. In terms of Ghana Beyond Aid, I think it's absolutely achievable, and I think unless you set the aspiration, then it won't be. So I think it's the right aspiration. In terms of where Ghana is just now, I think it's got quite a lot of challenges to get truly beyond aid, but I think the idea and the aspiration to be economically independent is a good one. For me, I think that in the world in which we all live today, it's a global world. So no country lives and acts totally independently. We're all interdependent. The UK, perhaps the best embodiment of that. London is a global city. If you walk through the streets of London, there are thousands, tens of thousands of Ghanaians living there, people from around the world living there. So the world is much more interconnected than it ever was in the past. So therefore, it seems to me that as Ghana looks beyond aid, it needs to shape now the kind of partnerships it wants to see in the future. And I hope that we see an even stronger relationship, an even stronger partnership with the UK and Ghana, not one that's built on development, but one that's built on a partnership of equals, a partnership whereby we invest in each other's economies, where we help each other's people grow, develop, work. And I think there's a lot of the kind of the capability to do that, but I think we need to make sure we shift and think hard about what it is we want to do together. I
remember the American ambassador to Ghana, Mr. Jackson, was on the same show. I sat with him, and he passed a comment in relation to Ghana Beyond Aid, that vision of our president is something that puts him above his competitors, above his predecessors. It makes him someone more visionary than a lot of recent leaders the country has seen. I don't know from where you sit whether or not you also draw a similar comparison. Is that the case?
So I think that it's been well received in terms of the vision, Ghana Beyond Aid. It's been an excellent line. It's been an excellent kind of encapsulation of, in 3 words, what the president wishes to achieve as president of this country. I think that the test for us all now is execution, is making that is implementing that, making that happen. And I think there's a lot to do because we can't just will Ghana to become beyond aid. We need to make sure we have practical actions to make that so.
And the practical things being done, currently.
Practical things being done. So I think in terms of making, as we see economic growth, it's very high. How do we make that more inclusive? Or how does the government of Ghana make that more inclusive? And how do the UK play a part in making that so? How do we help grow employment opportunities? I know when I'm looking at how the UK, which still is a big development partner, we still spend £125 million a year through DFID. We still have about 1.8 billion invested through things like CDC and PIDGE. We have a significant private sector involvement in the country. We've spent about £2 billion over the last 15 years on health and education. So there's no lack of will, there's no lack of investment, but I think the question is, how do we now turn that into a new narrative, a new story, and a new opportunity, whereby as Ghana moves beyond aid, we can see the practical steps to make that happen, that will grow employment and see the rest of the country develop right throughout the whole of Ghana.
So for instance, there's something the president has been saying, there's 1 district, 1 factory, 1 village, 1 dam. He basically made a number of promises. Much as people think this is something in the right direction, we are yet to see them materialize. It's been 18 months. You promised a district in every factory in Ghana, hoping that these districts will provide jobs for the teeming unemployed youth in the country. But already 18 months, we are not seeing anything.
I think you're right. Lots of people are asking very similar questions.
Is that a worry for you from where you sit?
Is there a worry? Look, I think that the nature of the electoral cycle here in Ghana, once every 4 years, means that we will need to start seeing progress in a lot of those areas soon. I think there have been areas of progress. I think you're starting to see work on things like the national ID system, or things like the paperless ports. And you are seeing some areas of investment across Ghana. But I think, clearly after the first 18 months in power and a time of planning and a time of shaping, now is the time to implement, and that needs to be pretty soon.
Free SHS, President touted it. He said he was going to make it happen. Well, he has implemented it to an extent. Now, I do know that at the last meeting, the Commonwealth Heads of States meeting, such an issue came up about making education inclusive. Also, it was also about infrastructure. Focus was also on infrastructure over there. By that communique issued, would you say that Ghana has failed as far as meeting that standard is concerned? Because we do have a lot of people who are, although enjoying free SHS, but they're having to school by sitting on the ground, sitting under trees and the like, just to get access to education.
So, I think I applaud the free SHS initiative. I think there's 90,000 extra students have managed now to be, or will now be, within the scope of a 14-year period of education. And my view is that in the world economy now, education is more important than ever. In the future, it's going to be a battle, and sensibly, of where is the kind of the greatest talent, and the best way we can exploit talent is by investing in education. So I think that's a good initiative, and one that in the Commonwealth Summit we actually were aimed slightly lower than that. We aimed at 12 years across the whole Commonwealth. So I think 14 years is a good thing. I think the points you raised, though, are right, which is that's not the end of the road by any means. What now needs to happen is to make sure that within those 14 years that education is to a good standard, and there's lots, I know, reform of the education system going on just now, but the quality of education needs to rise. The environments within which students are taught within schools needs to continue to improve. I think, as you say, teaching underneath trees is not really the kind of best environment. And in a world where so much more of our content is online, so much is driven by technology, I think investment in infrastructure, whether that is around the access to the web, access to computers and such like, I think that's key. So this is far from the end of the story, and I think it's why I think when we talk about Ghana Beyond Aid, it's now about the implementation of that and the path to make that happen. And it's something we're very keen to lean into, and we will seek to do more. But we want to organise our priorities around a future Ghana-UK relationship, whereby we are prioritising our efforts around those same efforts of the country at large. There should be a way of making this a common priority, and there's work to do.
Let me talk about Theresa May and her recent comments about homosexuality and the rights of homosexuals being respected, and the UK helping Ghana fix our constitution so much so that we're able to accommodate homosexuals who happen to be in the country. I'm sure you may have heard about some of the reactions, but what really was she trying to communicate to us?
So this is the question I've been asked more than anything since the Commonwealth Summit. I mean, I think I will answer it, but let me just say the Commonwealth Summit was about prosperity, deepening, broadening trade. It was about security, tackling things like cyber security and making sure that we're protecting our countries from increasingly kind of hostile attacks. It was about sustainability and reducing plastics in our seas. It was about fairness, and it was about broadening the inclusion of women and reducing discrimination across all of the Commonwealth. So that was the context, first of all. Within the context of LGBT rights, it's something that we, the UK, feel strongly about. We really believe there should be no discrimination based on your sexuality. It's something we, I guess, have discussed at length in the UK. It's been the source of lots of public debate. It's something we believe, and it's something we believe is captured in lots of discussions across the UN and more broadly. In Ghana, it seems to me Ghana is a very tolerant country. I well understand the fact that many LGBT people live in societies and they are not persecuted. They are accepted, and there's a tolerance of it. I think what we're kind of trying to say is that not just in Ghana but across the piece, the PM was saying that as part of our history, some of which is good and not all of which is great when we think back to days before independence. I think we say that, you know, where the UK helped shape laws or created laws that were unintentionally, or at the time intentionally, but now unintentionally discriminatory, we feel a responsibility that if countries wish to change those laws, we'd like to find a way of helping that. And that's what Theresa May was saying when she spoke to all members of the Commonwealth. And I think the way it's been interpreted here has been that the UK is somehow, you know, the questions I've been asked in it has been around the UK threatening to withdraw aid and not do this and not do that around LGBT rights. I think we see this as a question we want to keep on discussing, and we will do it in a way that is...
But there have been similar threats, there have been such threats in the past.
So I genuinely don't recognise that. And I previously worked in number 10 Downing Street when David Cameron was Prime Minister.
No such threat was made?
I don't recall any direct threat being made in the way that was said. I think that what we said is that we want to work with partners who share common values, including not discriminating.
So if we do not share in those values, what happens?
But I think Ghana does share a whole number of values with the UK. It's one of the things that I think stands out to me here as High Commissioner.
At the time, our president, John Evans Atamios, came out strongly saying there's no way we are going to tolerate such things in the country.
Sure, and look, as I said to you, we are a country that works with Ghana. We don't dictate terms to Ghana. That's not how we have ever been and not how we will ever be. So I think what we're saying is that we should, as friends, as partners, we should be able to discuss things over which we don't always agree. That is the basis of friendships. I don't agree with everything my friends say, but I do expect people to discuss it with them. And I think the thing that I take from much of the feedback is we need to be sensitive as to how that discussion is held. But I don't think we will resile from it. I think we have our views, we understand, we understand Ghana's, and I hope that's something that
But do you think there's a problem with our constitution that we need to fix as far as accommodating everybody's rights and privileges are concerned?
So my belief is that we shouldn't discriminate against anyone because of their sexual orientation, because of their gender, because of any of those things, because of race. It's a pretty simple view, and I think that we
should we legalise homosexuality in Ghana?
Look, I think laws in Ghana are for the people of Ghana to decide. You ask me what I think. I don't think that anything that kind of disadvantages one group over another is a desirable thing, but I absolutely respect the fact it's for Ghana to decide that.
The president says, well, perhaps if there's enough pressure and with time, the status quo may change. Is that something you also see happening?
Again, look, I think that laws develop because of what the people believe. That's why we believe so firmly, so strongly in democracy and the power of institutions. And I think that, you know, this is an issue that has public opinion has moved in the UK over many years, and it isn't a 100% view. Or, you know, there are dissenting views in the UK over this.
Oh, still in the UK.
But I think that, you know, I don't want to make the central thing that we talk about here being homosexuality. I say what I believe, but I believe there's a number of other things across the UK and Ghana that we need to equally be addressing, and homosexuality is one of them. It's not the only thing.
Let me chip this in. You know, one of the things I heard someone say on radio was that, well, those in the UK are saying, yes, we need to legalise homosexuality in Ghana. Have they thought about legalising polygamy?
I've heard the same argument. Like, I think the thing, I don't want to repeat myself, but in essence, I think that this is the issue that's come up more than anything else.
Yeah.
If you were to ask me, I think it is an important issue, and it's one that we have strong views on. But let's not pretend it's the only thing that we care about. The big priority, it seems to me, that sits across all of this, is that Ghana wants to move beyond aid. Yeah. It wants to grow its economy, it wants to grow the development of its people. That should include all of its people. It should include women, it should include people of all creeds and colours and orientations. But look, it's not for me to dictate to the country. What I'm saying is that I want to make sure we work together on that, including bringing in major investment, including bringing in the right kind of people to come and work within Ghana. So this is not an issue that is defined in one dimension. It's one that we want to kind of be able to carry on a conversation in the round and work together on.
Mr. Walker, thank you. Thank you very much for squeezing time off your very busy, extremely busy schedule. I know I had to struggle with Abigail for this, but thank you very much for this interview. I'm sure Ghanaians are keen on seeing you, perhaps, take part in maybe a Hogbechocho festival or visiting the Asante Hene and taking part in any of our local traditional festivals anytime. So I hope that will happen.
Well, I've been up to the Akufo-Addo before, and I've travelled around.
Your thoughts on that? How did it go?
It was exceptional. It was stimulating, fascinating in many, many different ways. But I think that if there's one watchword that I think I've stuck with since I've been here, it's a bit of humility. It's that if Ghana wants to grow and if UK wants to grow, no individual person has all of the answers, and I certainly don't think that for myself. So the reason I'm keen to reach out to as many people, get to know as many people as we can, is that when we have common interests and we work together, we can make a difference. And that includes understanding each other's cultures and getting out and about and seeing some of the traditional ways in Ghana, which are, as I said, stimulating and part of the rich heritage of this great country.
Mr. Walker, thank you once again.
Thank you.
Iain Walker has been our guest on 21 Minutes with KKB. He's the British High Commissioner to Ghana. He's been here since 2017, August 2017, I believe.
Correct.
Yeah, he's been here since 2017. Well, he's going to be with us for a few more years, hopefully. And if you have any more issues about legalization of homosexuality in Ghana, well, please do not send it to him. Bring it to us, we'll discuss it. But that has been another edition of 21 Minutes with KKB. My name is Akufo-Addo. I'll see you soon, hopefully, with another guest you're expecting.